You didn't fall in love with them. You recognized them. That is the difference nobody tells you about. And it changes everything you think you know about why you keep ending up in the same relationship wearing different faces. The person you chose at 35 was not a new choice. It was an old one, made not by the adult standing in front of them, asking the right questions, reading the right signals, but by a 7-year-old who learned very early what love was supposed to feel like, what it was supposed to cost, what it required of you just to be chosen. And that child has been running your relationships ever since, quietly, efficiently, without your permission. The part that should stop you cold is this. The more emotionally familiar someone feels when you first meet them, the more you need to ask yourself exactly why. Most people spend years trying to understand why they keep attracting the same kind of person. They blame their taste. They blame their luck. They change cities, careers, social circles. They tell themselves they just haven't met the right one yet. And none of that thinking is entirely wrong. It just isn't deep enough. Because the question was never about what you were choosing. It was about what was choosing for you. Between the ages of 4 and 10, your nervous system was doing something far more important than learning how to read or ride a bike. It was learning what safety feels like. It was learning whether the people you needed most would show up or disappear. Whether love came with conditions attached, whether you had to earn calm, or whether calm was something that simply existed around you. And from those early years, it built a template. Not a conscious one, not one you can see or name with ease, but a deeply embedded emotional map that tells you, on a nervous system level, what feels like home, what feels like love, what feels like the kind of closeness worth chasing. That map does not update on its own. It does not look at your adult life and revise itself. It simply keeps repeating the pattern, looking for what it knows, gravitating toward what feels familiar, and calling that feeling connection. This is where pattern recognition becomes the key to understanding everything, because your brain is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was trained to do. The problem is what it was trained on. And this is the part most people completely miss. The wound does not announce itself. It does not arrive wearing a warning label. It arrives wearing chemistry. It arrives wearing that inexplicable feeling in a first or second encounter. The sense that you have known this person before. That they understand something about you without you having to explain it. That the energy between you feels electric in a way you cannot quite put into words. What you are feeling in that moment is not destiny. It is recognition. Your nervous system has scanned this new person and found echoes of something old. Behavioral patterns that mirror what you were conditioned to respond to. And because familiarity reads as safety on a subconscious level, your body interprets that recognition as attraction, as rightness, as the one. This is where attachment theory becomes impossible to ignore. The wound you carry, whether it formed from emotional unavailability in a parent, inconsistency in their moods, quiet criticism, over-control, or simple absence, created an attachment pattern that now operates silently inside every romantic relationship you enter. And that pattern does not care about your age. It does not care that you have done therapy, read every book, made promises to yourself in the dark on too many nights to count. It activates the moment someone's emotional behavior starts to rhyme with what you absorbed in childhood. If you were raised around emotional unavailability, a parent who was physically present but emotionally distant, you likely developed what psychologists call an anxious attachment response. You learned that love requires pursuit, that closeness has to be earned through effort and persistence, that if you stop trying, the connection disappears. So as an adult, you find yourself drawn to people who are warm one day and unreachable the next. Because that rhythm, that cycle of reaching and withdrawing, is what your nervous system knows as love. The uncertainty does not feel like a problem. It feels alive. And to a nervous system that learned connection in uncertain conditions, that aliveness registers as passion. And here is the other side of that same wound. If you were raised in an environment where your emotions were dismissed, minimized, or treated as evidence of weakness, where being vulnerable meant being exposed, you likely developed an avoidant response instead. You learned that needing people is a liability, that the safest version of intimacy is one held at a careful, measured distance. So as an adult, You gravitate toward people who feel emotionally manageable, present but not demanding. And the moment genuine closeness becomes available, something inside you retreats. Not dramatically, quietly, in ways you may not even notice until the other person is already gone. Both of these patterns come from the same original wound. The belief, formed early and embedded at a level below language, that love is not something you can simply receive, that it is something you have to manage, earn, or protect yourself from. And this belief, unexamined, becomes the invisible architect of your entire relationship history. There is a third response worth naming here, and it may be the most complex of all. Some people developed what psychologists call a disorganized pattern, formed in environments where the very person they needed for comfort was also a source of confusion or fear. These are the people who desperately want intimacy but are simultaneously terrified of it, who pull someone close and then push them away without fully understanding why, who fall quickly and intensely and then feel a rising internal panic the moment the relationship becomes real. This pattern creates a particular kind of internal war. The longing for connection battling against the deep-seated belief that connection itself is not safe. And it is exhausting in a way that is very difficult to explain to someone who has not lived inside it. Think about the last person you were genuinely and powerfully drawn to. Think about the specific quality that made them feel different from everyone else. Was it the way they kept you slightly off balance? The way closeness with them required effort? The way their warmth felt like something to be earned rather than freely given? Or was it the opposite? The way they needed you so completely that you felt essential in a way that was suffocating and electric at the same time. Whatever that quality was, trace it backward. Somewhere in your early years there is a person, a recurring dynamic, a specific emotional feeling that it rhymes with. Your nervous system did not find them by accident. It went looking. And that is where the silent shift begins. This is what research into trauma bonding makes undeniably clear. Not that you are weak or damaged or incapable of real love, but that your brain formed a powerful associative loop early in life that links emotional intensity with closeness. And intensity, in childhood, often came from chaos, from the unpredictability of a parent whose mood you had to read before you even entered the room, from the specific relief of reconnection after distance, from the feeling of finally being chosen after too long of feeling invisible. So your adult brain, searching for the feeling it learned to call love, keeps scanning for that same intensity. And it finds it in people who recreate the emotional environment of your childhood, not because you deserve less, but because the nervous system does not look for what is good for you. It looks for what it knows. The insidious part is not only who you choose, it is what you tolerate once you are inside the relationship. The wound does not just select the person, it sets your threshold. It tells your body how much turbulence to normalize before something registers as a problem. Someone whose nervous system was calibrated inside emotional instability can process enormous amounts of chaos without their internal alarm ever activating. What reads as a bright red warning to someone else reads, to them, as a normal Tuesday. And this is not a failure of intelligence or self-worth. It is a calibration, one set in childhood and quietly running ever since. So stop here, just for a moment, because this next question is uncomfortable. And that discomfort is the point. Who taught you what love was supposed to feel like? Not what they said about love, not the words they used, but what it actually felt like, day to day, in the body, to be loved by the first people whose job it was to love you. Was it consistent? Was it warm and present without conditions? Or was it something you had to navigate around, something that shifted without warning, something that required you to be a particular version of yourself in order to stay safe inside it? Because that experience, not your values, not your intentions, not your awareness, that is the template your nervous system is still running. Right now. In this relationship. In the last one. In the next one, if nothing changes. This next part is the one that changes everything. The most painful truth about attachment wounds is not that they exist. It is that they feel like love. The longing you feel for someone emotionally unavailable does not feel like a trauma response repeating itself. It feels like real, undeniable connection. The anxiety of waiting, the low hum of wondering if they are pulling away, does not feel like a nervous system stuck in old fear. It feels like caring deeply. The way your chest opens when someone is warm and then suddenly unreachable. That does not feel like a pattern you inherited. It feels like falling. And this is precisely why so many people repeat the same relationship for decades without ever understanding that what they mistook for love was actually recognition. What they called chemistry was actually comfort. Not the comfort of being safe, but the comfort of being in familiar pain. This is why intellectual awareness alone is never enough. You can read every book, understand every concept, map out the pattern with perfect clarity, and still find yourself, months into something new, recreating the exact dynamic you promised yourself you would never enter again. Not because you failed, but because the wound is not stored in the mind. It lives in the body, in the nervous system, in the way someone's energy registers before a single conscious thought has formed. And here is what nobody talks about. The person who could actually offer what you were always searching for might feel wrong at first. Not wrong in an obvious way, just unfamiliar, too easy, too steady, no chase. And your nervous system, still running its old map, might read that steadiness as an absence of chemistry, as evidence that they are not the one. When what you are actually feeling is the absence of the wound being activated. And to a nervous system calibrated on chaos, that absence, that quiet, can feel dangerously close to nothing. You are not choosing wrong because you are broken. You are choosing what is familiar because that is what all of us do, until we don't. Until the moment something inside us shifts enough to recognize that familiarity itself is worth questioning. The wound formed at 7 did not know what it was doing. It was surviving. It was building the best map it could from the only information it had. The work now is not to erase that map. It is to understand it well enough to stop letting it choose for you. But there is a question this video has not yet answered. What happens when someone genuinely safe finally arrives, and your nervous system does not know how to receive them? That internal silence carries a story of its own, and it begins somewhere else. Have you ever met someone consistent and kind, and felt almost nothing, and quietly used that emptiness as a reason to keep looking? Drop it below. More people have lived that exact moment than will ever say it out loud.